Hey everybody, what's up? Gary Simon here. So today we're going to be taking a look at something that some of you have requested quite a bit throughout the years, and that is how do you design for a text or content heavy site? So if you think of like news sites, there's a lot of content requirements that they have to fit in there. And that could be a little bit tricky. Like, how do you fit all that in and also make it look good? So that's going to be the topic of today's video. And I'm going to be showing you, for instance, also this cool sort of font pairing site called Fontjoy.com. I'm going to use that to try to come up with some font pairs because this is going to be, purely a text-heavy site, and we're going to try to make it look as good as possible. All right, so if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe and let's get started. Now, before we begin, this video is sponsored by Scrimba. Now, Scrimba is the easiest and most interactive way to grow your coding skills. It's a mind-blowing technology that allows you to play around the code directly inside screencasts. For instance, this video is about UI design, but if your UI designs are ugly, you should definitely check out my recently launched UI design bootcamp at Scrimba. I've created nearly 9 hours of content with exactly 100 lectures, all that are going to take you from zero to hero as a UI designer. So if you hurry up and click the link below here in the YouTube description, you will receive a massive discount, but you have to hurry because we're limiting it to the very first 50 people. All right, so we're gonna get started with this tool I just discovered this morning called Fontjoy.com, all right? And what it allows you to do is to choose or generate. I already have this one generated, I want to keep it, but just to get on another tab, just to show you how it works, you click on generate right here, and it will create 3 different font pairings. And sometimes they don't work well, so you click generate a bunch of times until you think you have something that works well. This right here is a contrast slider, so if you bump this all the way up to the right, it'll make them to be very similar. You can see there's not a lot of difference in terms of the font weights. If you take it over here, you'll see that it generates, for the headline, something that's quite a bit different in terms of, it looks like a style as well, like this is a script font here. Then we have a serif font and then a sans serif font down here. So you can go all over the place and have fun with this. You can also adjust, you can lock them. So for instance, if you like this script font, but you don't like the other one too, you can lock this, hit generate, and just come up with 3 font pairings that you think work well together. And once you do that, you can right click and just open this in a new tab, and in Google Fonts you can download the family. So that's what I've done here. I kind of like this one. We have a sans serif, it's called Archivo Narrow, and then Jungle, and then Martel. All right, so this is what we're going to use, and I've already downloaded these fonts, and so they're all ready to rock. So Archivo Narrow is the first one for like a headline of some sort. And again, just to reiterate, I have not, designed this. I didn't come up with a project first, and I'm not just going to be looking off the monitor. I have no clue what I'm going to be designing. I kind of do want to, I don't know why, I just want to do like a darker sort of scheme for this demonstration. All right, so I also want to make this just a tad bit wider. Not wider, but longer. There we go. Just to give ourselves some space, and I will be using the Adobe XD plugin of Lorem Ipsum right here, so we could fill the placeholder with just text and stuff. And so I might do a couple of these layouts, maybe one with like 2 columns, maybe one with 3 or 4. Increasingly adding more text to the layout, and just to give ourselves some different looks. All right, I'll shut up now. Let's get started. So for the first thing, just to make it look like an actual layout, I'll put a logo. I'll just do logo here. And we'll make this large, a little bit larger. All right, that's fine. And so really, we don't know the context of this site. And so what we're going to be focusing on in terms of UI design is not so much about the context or what the purpose of the site is. It's going to be more about the actual layout, the UI design fundamentals as it pertains to dealing with a content heavy site or text or type heavy site, and laying it out. So when it comes to the UI design fundamentals that we want to pay attention to, most importantly, of which there's about 7 of them or 8 of them, is going to be white space, all right, and it's also going to be scale. All right, so those are the two that really dictate the structure and the form of a layout, especially in regards to a layout that has a lot of text and content heavy requirements. So I don't know what I'm going to do up here first. Let's say we're going to have a large focal news story or something, or a big piece of content that we deem the most important, right? So we're going to make that and structure it with visual hierarchy, which is another UI or design fundamental, and we're going to make it larger than the other stories. But again, we don't want to try to delegate too much space to it in terms of white space and scale, because we have a lot of text to get there to work in here as well. You see this a lot on like news story sites, like the large mainstream news sites, just a ton of text because they have so many stories, right? So what I'll do is just type in all right, a really important piece of news. Now the first font pairing I have is from a font called Archivo. All right, and so all right, a really important piece of news. Notice I'm putting right here on this left column, aligning it here. So that's important. We can always drag these over like that. There we go. Now we know it's perfect. Again, I may change the size of this, whatever, not a big deal. And then we will perhaps put in our second one, which is jungle, or we could use Martel for maybe like a little bit of a blip or something. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and left click and drag out a text area here. And this is really large, of course, so we're going to scale that sucker down quite a bit. And then we also will put in, let's try jungle and just see what that looks like. Why did that not work? Jungle. Bro. Oh, it's not jungle, it's G-U-N-G. G-U-N-G-E, jung. Okay, that's my fault. All right. Let's go ahead and put in placeholder text. So where's my plugins? Lorem ipsum. Control Alt left. I should remember that. Control Alt and then L. Okay. All right. So notice right off the bat, this looks pretty good. I mean, notice how few elements we have. We have a logo. We have a navigation. And we have already just a piece of content for the hero section. But it looks solid even though there's hardly anything here. Why is that? Because I understand design fundamentals, which is really important. Why? If you don't understand UI design fundamentals, you would have perhaps done something silly like this, like, this, and now it just looks stupid, right? So that's why you guys need to take my Scrimba UI design fundamentals course. Shameless plug, yes, I know. All right, so we have a piece of news, and usually if we're designing for the homepage, by the way, and you don't want to, put all of your content that's a part of a news story right there. You show a little or excerpt, a little blip of it. This probably would even be a little bit too much. So I'm gonna get rid of that. All right, and maybe we'll increase our line height just a little bit. All right, a really important piece of news. And let's see what else, what the other text looks like. So I'm just going to duplicate this, and this is called Martel or Martel. I don't know how to pronounce that. They're actually pretty similar. This one, as we can see, if we look at the font pairings, the jung or whatever however that's pronounced is larger, so it does look quite a bit different. But when they're at the same size or around the same size, they look rather similar, don't they? So when you're dealing with 3 pieces of type, and you don't have to, by the way, it's really important that they're separated in terms of the visual hierarchy, okay? So these two alone look pretty good here. I'm not sure if it's necessary. Let me see here. We only have one weight for this jung, all right? So we're here. This one being, you could tell it's like a thicker weight. Because if this is a 38, so if this was 38, we could see how much more bold this one is in contrast to that one. So I might just opt to take this, and we can use the same font, but we can scale this down and then we really create that necessary separation or the visual hierarchy between those two elements. So really important piece of news. Let's see what we have here. Let's drag this out. Now that we, let's see. Maybe for this would be kind of like a sub-headline. And so I'm just kind of working through my normal process. I may change things up quite a bit just to see how I want this to all flow and fit in together. Now, to me, this is still looking a little bit iffy. There's something about it that I don't quite like. So we're at 23, 41 for the line height. We could do this, and this will further create separation between these three elements. We could now again, you want to make sure that we're going to check our stark contrast, color contrast checker. Where are you at, Stark? There you are. So we're good here. We're at a 6:1 contrast ratio based on this foreground color and this background color. All right, so we're good to go. All right, so you don't want that to be under 4.5. For instance, if I made this like that, we would fail. See, it doesn't adhere to the AA 4.5 to 1 because it's 3.19 to 1. And this would be hard for people to read. I see people get this wrong all the time. So yeah, we want to bump this up to at least 4.5. This is looking pretty good to me now. So I kind of like that. It looks decent to me. I may come back and decide if I want to change that. So here's our first piece of content essentially in this area. Now, of course, we could add things like icons, you know, perhaps there's like a date or something. We could do all of that stuff. But for now, I just want to get perhaps another column over here. Yeah, maybe something like that. Now, we could just delegate this, relegate this to having its own, you know, area over here. Or we could put another column right here. I'm not sure if I want to do that. And perhaps, you know, what would we do if we did have that? Let's say we have a bunch of secondary, and I mean secondary in terms of importance of content, stuff over here, like links or something, like news articles. So we'll go ahead, let's use this. No, we'll use that font, but we need to make this a text area. All right, so what is this called again? This is Archivo, I don't know. All right, so let's make these white for now, at least. And we'll just do some lorem ipsum crap right here. So like, let's bump these up. So getting the scale about all this stuff in relation to each other becomes an increasingly difficult task the more text that you have and the more elements. So that's important to understand. So let's go ahead and let's see here. I'm going to try something, and it may fail, but that's okay. I'm going to try putting a border underneath these. All right. And I don't even have to change the default Adobe XD color, the border, because it looks pretty good to me already. So now I'm going to take the repeat grid, and we'll see if this at all makes any sense. Okay. I wish there was a way I can change all of these. to be like different lorem ipsum texts. I'm gonna try it just for the heck of it. It's probably not gonna work. Yeah, you have to choose at least one node. That's unfortunate. Let's see if we do this. Well, let me duplicate this off the side in case I need to redo something. We'll ungroup, and we'll ungroup. Let's see, right click ungroup, and we'll just take all these. I'm gonna see if I take these top 4, if it'll change them to different lorem ipsum text. I probably won't. No. Okay, well that sucks. I hate having just the same exact type repeat here over and over again. So I think what I'll do is just speed this part up, because I'm gonna manually have to do this, unfortunately. All right, so now I think what I'll do is just take these, delete all those. We'll take this, repeat grid. There we go. Now they look a little bit more structured, I guess you could say. I may end up changing this. We're coming back to it. But for now, I'm just gonna leave it as is, like how it is, and then we'll try to decide what we should do from the big picture. Because right now it's about experimenting. It's not about getting the final product in terms of the layout finished. Let's go ahead and take this down here. All right, so we have our white space here. We have our content so far. So what should go here? What could fit here? Again, sometimes it's just tough because we don't have context. We don't know what type of site this is that we're dealing with necessarily. But that's okay. What can we put here? Maybe we'll put here maybe like 2 columns of content. Let's do that. So perhaps we'll take this. Actually, I don't want to do that. Again, if we're doing 2 columns here, we'll put a column here. Okay, that's good. Let's see. I recently purchased a new guitar. It's called the Majesty. Okay. Sometimes I like to have a real actual text. All right, so we've deemed this being the most important. Thus, right now, is drawing the most attention, right? That's what we want because we have increased scale right to it. And also kind of increased white space. It's in its own area. Then we have this stuff. This is all secondary. And then this is going to be, this is secondary, but this is less important than what this is right here. But this stuff is less important than what this is over here. All right, so we'll say that's our title for this particular piece of content. I recently purchased, okay, let's see. Let me change this. I want to do something unique. Recently, I purchased a new guitar. Okay, so maybe we could do something like, well, let's hold off on that. Let's duplicate this. I don't know yet what 50% of that is. What we'll try to, of this section is, but we'll figure it out. Let's fill that in with more lorem ipsum text. So Control Alt L, insert. All right. So let's put in, let's make this start with a C. So the thing that I was talking about that I wanted to be more unique would be, we'll take, what is this? This is that June text. All right. I'm going to put a big C. I forget what you call this, by the way. But you'll see what I mean in a second. Is that, well, I'm not sure if that's how I necessarily wanted to handle that. It's kind of like a watermark, but really I think most of the time when people do this, let me take this over here. I'll take the C off here. See if I can figure this out. It's not something I've really done before. Also, I'm not exactly sure how you would work this in terms of making it work with HTML and CSS. Yeah, I don't like that. Just forget I even did that. All right, well, we'll see how this works. Right now, I'm not happy with this, though, because this type and this type, I don't know. I'm not sure if I like what's happening at the moment. I'm trying to figure out how I can really, because right now, there's not enough visual hierarchy between this here and this here for my liking. So I'm thinking about a couple different ways that I could solve this. For now, let's duplicate this and just see what these look like side by side. All right, so I'm going to take this, move that in more. To record a new song. All right. I don't want these to be the exact same amount of characters. Okay. All right. So there's some things I'm experimenting with in my brain about how we could possibly solve this issue. Like, maybe we can make this larger. All right. So let's try that. Now, when we make this larger, we lose the separation between these two elements with the visual hierarchy. So that's something we need to take into consideration as well. So again, we could bump this up, allowing us to bump this up. All right, so now these are kind of separated out a little bit more, at least. I was also thinking of doing something like this, and we'll play with this and see what happens. Not this exactly, but you'll see what I mean in a second. We'll take this, put it at the very bottom. Looks kind of cool, but that's not what I had in mind. And then we could take this again. And grab this color. Oops. All right, I kind of like this so far. It has some potential. Let's see. Yeah, I'm starting to like it a little bit more. Let's go ahead and lock that. Lock. All right. So as you can see, we have a lot of type, and it's working quite well so far. Let's take this. I'm gonna move it over slightly. And again, we don't want to have a lot of white space between these elements because, you know, we do have a lot of content that we want to work with essentially. Let's see here. Not too sure if I like these little A and C here. Let's see what that looks like without those. Again, it does add something to it, but again, I'm not sure if that's something that I necessarily want to do. Right now, I'm just trying to visualize what else I can do. You know, again, we could take these two, repeat the grid. I'm not sure if I even want to do that though. Maybe we'll put yeah, maybe we'll bring it back. Oops, went the wrong way. Let's lock that again. All right, perhaps we'll have like some sort of form or something, like a subscribe now for more of the latest news. All right. So we'll put, we don't want that big though. What is this, the SpongeBob text? Ugh. All right. Enjoy our content. Let's put, we'll put this, we'll put a form right here. I think what I'll do is this instead. I don't want to push it down that much. There we go. So now it has, it's kind of like a heading and a label. All right, we'll take this. Oops. Nah, I want to go lighter on that. We'll give it some rounded corners, perhaps. Just very subtly. I like just very subtle rounded corners. What do I want to do with this? White? Black? No, not black. We're kind of working on a monochromatic scheme right now, so again, I may change some of this stuff. Subscribe now. We will take that down. We will center it. We will make it black. And what is this called again? Archivo. Make this bold. All right. I think there might be just a tad bit too much type in these areas. So I'm gonna reduce those. I'm gonna put buttons in them too, like real simple ones. So I'll just take, let's see here. All right, and we'll extend this down just a bit more. All right, I like that a lot better, honestly. Let's take this. That's actually pretty good right there. Make this a button here, or a group rather. All right. All right, so we're looking pretty solid so far in terms of the design at this point. And as you can see, really want you to pay attention to all the alignment that I have here. There's pretty much consistent white space. I notice this is slightly off. Like if we look at the white space between the top of this element right here, this headline, versus the very top of this container right here. But then compare that to the amount. I'll just draw a square just to show you. We have this amount, but then we have this amount. We can tell it's slightly not as much. These are big. I mean, there's really small differences, but they actually make a big impact overall. So we want to move these so that we have an equal amount of white space between the various sections of our content. We can see that there's basically an equal amount between here and here. We could probably stand to move these up just slightly, and then perhaps this area as well. All right, because you do want these to feel like their own containers, their own blocks, right? This is its own block. This is its own block, right? So you have white space between them. And the amount of white space that you use is dependent upon how much content you have to relegate or delegate in each section of the layout. So the more content you're required to use, the less white space you're able to use, but you still need to utilize it correctly. So looking at this, I'm actually pretty happy with it for the most part. I think maybe it's a little bit heavy a type up here. I'm not sure if I like this. I do like my white space, but sometimes you just you can't do anything about it. All right, so I'm trying to determine if I want to keep on going with this because I think it did illustrate our ideas pretty well. But let's add one more section here to the bottom just to keep on working on this concept so that you guys can kind of understand what's happening exactly. So let's say for instance a bunch of columns down here. We'll say they have so much content, we're gonna have maybe 4 columns of content down here. So maybe we'll have some images too that are a part of each section. So real quickly, what I'll do is I will repeat grid just to get an idea of what the length of 4 is equal to here. So we need to make these even smaller. All right, that looks like a pretty good white space between each section here. All right, so it's just gonna ungroup that. We'll delete these now that we know this one is where it needs to be in terms of its width. So now we'll go ahead and put in maybe another heading. Other worldly news. Wait. Worldly, there we go. Other worldly news. Okay. Now we could do this as well. We could take this and just have this could probably be larger. Oh no, my dog's barking down there and being very annoying. All right. Other worldly news. Okay, so now what we can do is we can let's add a title here. Let's do. Oh my God, be quiet, dog. All right, hey, make that dog be quiet. Thank you. All right, so now what we'll do is we'll take this here. All right, sorry, I had to pause because somebody came over and the dogs were freaking out. So we have this section here, and I just have some type here. like with an associated thumbnail. Let me do this real quick. We'll take this down. Okay. So now, let's see if we can take these, repeat the grid. Maybe we'll just do 4. I'm not sure if I like this, but we'll go with it. All right. Oh my God, be quiet. I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna kill him. All right, so this looks a little bit too much. I mean, what is this? What was I thinking, right? So I think what we'll do instead is we're just gonna make these standard, just links. That's it. It's gonna be kind of like this one. Maybe we'll have a subheading as a part of that. So what we'll do is we'll take this, duplicate it. We'll use Junj, perhaps. Scale that down. Maybe we'll put a date. I don't know. So we'll just put, what is today? May 12th? Yeah, 2020. At 6:15 p.m. EST. Okay, whatever. All right. And we'll use a slightly different color value for that as well. What size is that? Okay, I think we were using like 19 for one of the other smaller ones. All right, so that's decent there. This time we're not gonna. I don't think I'm gonna separate them out with a horizontal border. I think what we'll do instead is do a column vertical border between these 4. So we'll repeat grid down. All right, and then give ourselves some white space. And then we will pull this out. Now this looks really silly because of the fact that they're all the same exact content. But what we can do is let's put in separators between these. And I'll just repeat grid this. Like that. And there we go. Otherworldly news. Let's take this all down just slightly. All right, and that's actually looking pretty solid. All right, so now we have our, this is basically it. I mean, as you can see, it's all about understanding your rows versus columns versus contrast and scale in white space and visual hierarchy. All right, those are the main ones that you really have to pay attention to in order to make something like this cohesive and work when you have so much type that you have to design for. As you can see, it's still a solid layout. It looks good even though you have a lot of type, but it really separates the content out, and it really defines that visual hierarchy, because we can see this is the most important piece. This is where your eye's directed to. It's larger type. And we've also included this in its own gray container. It's different color container just to say and separate really this secondary information right here. These are still important, of course, but they're not important as this one. And then over here we have kind of other secondary links that may be important but not quite as important as these areas. And you can just see it visually. And then we have all these, which could be perhaps other news or older news or something of that nature. And as you can see, you really just want to focus on using your scale, color contrast, visual hierarchy in order to really establish a good solid layout here. Hey everybody, what's up? Gary Simon here. So today we're gonna be taking a look at something that some of you have requested quite a bit throughout the years, and that is how do you design for a text or content heavy site? So if you think of like news sites, there's a lot of content requirements that they have to fit in there. And that could be a little bit tricky. Like, how do you fit all that in and also make it look good? So that's going to be the topic of today's video. And I'm going to be showing you, for instance, also this cool sort of font pairing site called Fontjoy.com. I'm going to use that to try to come up with some font pairs. Because this is going to be, purely a text-heavy site, and we're going to try to make it look as good as possible. All right, so if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe, and let's get started.